Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Monday, January 8th. We are here live. It is time for a Monday free-for-all. Anything goes. If you've got a question, a comment, a topic, jump in and join us. I'll give you the phone number because around here these days, never quite sure. The call-in button on your app will work. We've got it programmed correctly. If you're going to dial in, here's the number, 319-527-6791. Anything goes. We'll get to those calls here in just a little bit. I've just got some odds and ends I'm going to talk about until we get some calls lined up. So go ahead and join us. While we're talking about the phones, I'll give you an update on where we are. I know I've been pretty frustrated with it. Things are starting to look up, so we'll keep you informed. Here's kind of a recap. You know, we've been doing this for over 2 years, and we've had problems along the way. But I went back and kind of looked at everything that's been going on. In the beginning, most of the problems were on my end or our end. I was working on different setups, different technology, different devices and electronics, and I need 2 different setups, one, in the studio and one when I'm on the road. And a lot of the problems were just working through the best way to build that out. We've been building our own system. And then in the last, 6 months for sure, it seems to have gotten even worse here in the last 3 months. The last piece that we haven't finished on our own. A lot of the stuff in the background we've built out. The last piece has been the phone system. And there's 2 phone systems out there that can work the way we need them to work. For some reason, those 2 systems have gotten worse instead of better. And they've both been around a long time. Blog Talk Radio, which we're using today, I was using 20 years ago. Or close to it. We had an outage with Blog Talk Radio that lasted almost a week. And then for some reason, our other platform just has weird intermittent technical issues that I just can't even figure out. But for some reason, that part of everything has gotten worse. So I went back and looked. Almost every problem we're having now is not on our end. It's not equipment issues. There's still user error on my part because I'm jumping back and forth all the time from 2 or 3 different systems and leads to errors. But for the most part, the problems have been in those 2 phone systems. Now, here's the good news. We are going to be testing our phone system this week, I think. We're getting really close. I've got a lot of the other technology worked out, so we're hoping that we'll have our own phone system up and running soon. That will get us very, very close to building this out on our own platform. And like I said, one of the problems is we really do a live radio show, not a podcast. Almost all of the software out there is designed for podcasting. It's super easy. Even if you've never podcasted, you could download an app to your phone right now and you could be running a successful podcast today. It's not that hard at all, and the software is easy. But a typical podcast is a host and a guest and an hour show a week. We're doing 10 to 15 hours a week. We live stream and we take live calls. Other than radio stations and all of their equipment, there just isn't anything out there to do that without hacking together a bunch of pieces, which is what we've done, and then the system becomes complicated. Oh, the other thing I'm in the middle of upgrading this now. So one of the issues that it just piles on is the internet seems to be worse for us here at home, at least, and it was more of a problem on the road as well. Our internet access seems to be less dependable than it was 15 years ago. We have fiber here in the studio, but it's not very dependable. We've been having big drops where I just lose the internet signal completely. That causes all kinds of technical issues and things crash. And so Aaron and I worked on a kind of a foolproof system, about as foolproof and redundant as you can make this, I think I'm going to have, when I get this system finished, I think I'm going to have 4 separate connections to the internet. We will have Starlink, 2 cellular connections, and our current fiber when we're in the studio. When we're on the road, we'll have 3 at least, and we have the ability to add a Wi-Fi signal if we're parked somewhere, say in a TA, and they've got Wi-Fi. I'll have 3 signals with me, Starlink and 2 cell signals, and we could bond in that Wi-Fi even. So we could have 4 signals at home, and many times when we're on the road, we could have 4. That's pretty redundant. But we've also invested in the equipment to what's called bond those signals together. And it's fairly expensive, but it should mean that the odds of us ever having an internet failure should be almost 0. Because if we lose any one of those 4 signals, the other 3 should pick up with no drop whatsoever. That's the bonding part. So I think once we get the internet nailed down and we don't have to worry about internet drops, we build our own phone system, we might be able to get back to just doing the show every day and not fighting with technology all the time. So that's the update on that. I had a ton of other stuff, but boy, the phone calls are really coming in. So I think, let me look through my list here. I had some interesting stuff, but nothing all that important. It can probably wait. We'll get to the phone calls. Let's get started right now. Let's go to Oklahoma. Paul, good morning.
Is that me?
That is you.
Hello? Oh, you disappeared right there for a minute.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So after Friday's show, TJ comes in and drops a grenade, and then, I got to go. See you.
Yeah, I know.
You should bring back the pit, and TJ can be your co-host.
Wouldn't that be fun?
It's an election year. I like listening to TJ, but he pissed me off on Friday because I think I was the next caller in line, but it's like, TJ, go. Move along. He's like, I got to go. 10 minutes later, he got off, and then your wagon fell off the track, and it's like, God damn it.
That was the other frustrating thing. That was what I was just talking about. We had a total internet drop. And the problem is our system's so complicated that with an internet drop like that, I have to restart like 4 different things. And we had already been on the air over 2 hours, and we had so many calls and so many guests. I thought, man, if I restart all this, it's going to take me 15 minutes, and we're almost done anyway. And it's Friday, so I'm just quitting. But it's frustrating.
Yeah, well, I guess that's...
I hate ending a show like that.
What happened, but...
Yeah.
Joel and Henry and Alec, they continued to talk for a few minutes, and then it's like, it looks like we lost Kevin. And it's like, I'm out of here. So that was the end of it.
But, that was frustrating.
Seeing it's an election year, TJ can be your co-host for the pit.
I think that would be fun.
Yeah. So, I haven't done all my numbers for the end of the year, but my maintenance was 29.1 cents a mile for my truck, which is 10.5 years old, 1.3 million miles, and my old trailer, which is the same age, but now I have my new trailer, so I ended up at 29.1 cents a mile for maintenance for last year, I was happy with that.
Yeah, I need to go back and dig into the maintenance numbers and averages now. It's been a couple of years since I've done it. Things have really changed. The cost of maintenance has gone way up. The numbers we used to use are just not accurate anymore, not even close. You're a different situation because your trailer can add quite a bit of cost.
Actually, that was maintenance and tires. So,
okay. Yeah, and we always want to include tires and maintenance. I can remember a time, I guess it was a while back, but it doesn't feel like it was that long ago to me, where I used to operate my trucks at 6 cents a mile in maintenance. 6 cents a mile. For years it was that number.
Anybody that's only spending 6 cents a mile now, I think they're in for a rude surprise because there's stuff they're not doing.
That's an interesting point because we talk about, cost per mile all the time and always trying to get our costs down. But maintenance is one of those numbers. When I look at it, I look to make sure it's not too high or too low. If it's too low, eventually it will become too high. If you're not doing enough of the preventative maintenance, then it's going to catch up with you. So that's one of those numbers where there's usually a sweet spot. We don't want it too low.
Yep. Yeah, well, I was happy because at one stage earlier in the year, I was up around 38 or 39 cents. But the end of the year, I was 29.1, so I was happy with that. So
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Right, that's all I got today.
All right, that's all we need. We will move along. Phone lines are open. It is a Monday free-for-all. Jump in and join us. You can either use your call-in button on the app. That will work, or the number today, it's phone number bingo around here these days, 319-527-6791. Let's go to Illinois. Jerry, welcome.
Good morning, Kellen. I got a couple of really quick things, and then I got a question, and it may be a short answer because you may not have done what you said you were going to do. But if you ever want to just be purely entertained, and maybe you already do this, but if you want to be purely entertained, get some kind of a clandestine identity and join that NOAA Facebook group. It's hilarious.
I can't.
I'm not going to ask if you already do.
No, I don't. I don't.
Just a comment.
I don't. I am always completely upfront and transparent about this. I don't use false profiles online anywhere to try to, I know a lot of people keep some other identities around so they can lurk. Here's, the biggest reason I don't do it. I'm going to be completely honest.
Time.
No, it's actually not time. That's one reason. I can't spend a bunch of time in there with them. It would frustrate the hell out of me anyway. But here's the reason I don't use different identities online. I would screw it up. I absolutely know I would. I would post one day not paying attention to which account I was on, and it would completely give it away. I would make a mess of it. So it's just better for me just to be upfront, transparent. Here's who I am. This is the only account you'll ever see with me with online. Now, the only exception to that is I do have I don't have one on Twitter. I used to have one on Facebook, and I do have one on our tribe site. I have an alternative login that doesn't have any kind of admin rights. It's just a regular account. And the only thing I use it for is because sometimes you see things differently then. The whole system works different when you don't have admin rights. And I just use one of those to test things. But I don't post because, like I said, I if I tried to troll around and do stuff like that, I would screw it up.
Yeah, well, I just get entertained by watching it. I mean, they've got owner-operator in their group, and yet you have people that are arguing to the extreme that there's no such thing in the trucking industry as an owner-operator, but yet they have owner-operator in the name of the group.
This seems to be, you're right. This seems to be their biggest challenge. They can't seem to separate the difference between an employee and a business owner. That they mix the two up all the time. It's like they don't even distinguish between the two. And then for some reason, they don't believe independent contractors should exist, that you shouldn't be allowed to lease to a carrier. They believe that the Motor Carrier Act of 1980 should come back, except when I ask them what that really was and what it meant, nobody can explain it to me. I get so frustrated when I watch. The other thing they've been doing a lot of, they've been joining spaces or being a part of spaces on Twitter, but I noticed a trend. They keep joining spaces that are hosted by people that aren't in trucking, and they somehow convince them to do the space about trucking issues. And because the host has no idea about the trucking industry, they say anything they want. And some of the crap I've heard in there is just insane.
Yeah, but they know they can get away with it because nobody's smart enough to challenge them in those
Exactly.
groups.
And it just goes on, and they would have you believe that because of the way truck drivers are treated, the whole world is going to collapse. I mean, it's just kind of insane.
So. Just another side note before I get to my question is 23,300 I burned $10,380 was my discount through NASDAQ.
Wow.
Yeah, why wouldn't anybody be a member? I don't understand why everybody wouldn't be a member. So anyway.
I agree with that. And one of the reasons, has always been they really do focus on about 20 truck fleets. But we're changing that. We've got some programs we're working on that. And one of the reasons they have never really gone after our market, 5 trucks or less is kind of what I consider my market, maybe 10.
Yeah.
Honestly, they didn't have programs other than the fuel card. And David kind of felt like the fuel card wasn't enough. And I said, David, that fuel card is worth 10 times more than the membership dues they're paying.
Oh, absolutely.
If
people get all hung up on their dues.
If all they did was use the fuel card alone, they don't need any more value for what you're charging them. But, I like it.
Exactly.
We're putting other programs together, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah. Well, let me get to my question here. I got somebody just pull in here. But right before Christmas break, you mentioned that Vivek Ramaswamy was going to do a speech at the Iowa 80.
Yeah.
And you were going to go watch it. Did you watch it? And I'd like to have you comment on it. That was my real question.
And there's a lot going on with Vivek right now. I watched parts of it. I didn't watch the whole thing. I really didn't need to. I mean, I liked a lot of what he said. Here's where I am with him, honestly. I've watched him. He has been all over social media. He's all over the place campaigning. This guy, I always said one of the things I loved about Trump was how hard he worked. One of the things I hated about Trump.
You go ahead and answer the question. I got to hang up. So go ahead and answer the question.
All right, I will continue to answer the question. One of the things I hated about Trump was the way that he handled the media by taunting them over and over and over and insulting them over and over and over. And I think it was a mistake. I think the media is too powerful. I think had Trump not done that, he may have been a 2-term president. I don't know. A lot of people think the election would have been stolen either way. Maybe it would have. I don't know. But there was no good outcome to the way he handled the media, and it made things much worse for him. Now, I'm watching Vivek Ramaswamy, and I've liked him from the time I read his book. If you want to know a little more about him, he did write a book called Woke Inc. about all the problems with DEI and the woke culture and all of those things that have been going on. Really good book. That was the first time I heard of him when I read the book. Then he announced his run for presidency, and I've been watching him ever since. Here's where I am with this guy. I don't know anything more about him than what I can read from his book, from his history that I can find, from watching him. Right now, he actually seems too good to be true to me. The things he is saying not only go along with a lot of what I've believed for a long time, he goes way farther than I ever thought a candidate would. He really is serious about eliminating huge parts of the government, all the alphabet agencies. And I am all for that. He isn't a big believer in we should be the world's police and spending all this money around the world when we're broke. I could go on and on and on and on. And I have never seen anybody handle the media better than Vivek Ramaswamy. Not even close. This guy does not play games with them. He shuts them down. He points out their absurdity. He pushes back hard, and he's good at it. He's really good at it. He does it without insulting anybody. He just states the facts. The things he talked about in trucking, exactly what we need in trucking. And I was shocked at how well he understood the issues. This guy is extremely intelligent. So I've got kind of mixed feelings. Like I said, it almost seems too good to be true, and I'm wondering what's out there that we don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe this guy just really is that impressive. And here's the other thing. He's so young, he almost didn't qualify to be president this time. It was fairly close. So As far as his speech at Iowa 80 and the fact that he was there at all and how well he understood the trucking industry and its issues, and he's never had anything to do with trucking, but he works harder than anybody I've seen, including Trump. He's really intelligent. He's young and energetic, and he's saying a lot of really good stuff. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, Trump's going to be the candidate and Trump should pick him as a vice president. I can't imagine Trump ever picking Vivek Ramaswamy as a running mate. I just think his ego's too big. I'll tell you what's been happening lately on the campaign trail in Iowa. A lot of people are asking Vivek if he would choose Donald Trump as his running mate if he manages to win the primaries. And he answered it the other day in a video. I posted it, I don't know if I put it up on the Tribe site or not. He actually answered that question, and he said he would absolutely consider Donald Trump as a running mate. I don't think it would ever work, and I'm sure it won't work the other way around. But if nothing else, it's really interesting to have him in the race because of all the things he's saying. And he's really starting to garner a lot of attention. So it could get interesting. I think if we were to vote today and I could just pick anybody that I wanted to vote for president, I am getting closer and closer to thinking it would be him. The only thing I'm concerned about is there's some things I just don't know. And occasionally there's this report he took a bunch of money from Klaus Schwab or somebody crazy like that. And maybe he has, I don't know. Anymore, it is so hard to try to track all this stuff down and find the truth. But I'm going to keep an eye on that one because it's pretty interesting. All right, let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Tennessee. Danny, welcome.
Good morning, Kevin.
What's on your mind today?
There's a lot of stuff, but I've got one of those new LEVN AI headsets that I'm talking on. Just thought I'd throw that out.
Yeah, it sounds pretty clear.
Yeah, I like it. It's like $49.
That's hard to beat.
Better than the others. All right. Yeah, I do like Vivek too there. I've been following him. But anyway, I've posted up. I know people have called in about the hybrid electric, diesel electric truck. Maybe that. Have you, and I posted it up, whether you've seen it, I don't know, that Edison Motors up in British Columbia. Have you seen what they built from scratch?
I have not watched any of the videos or read anything on that. I've seen it, and I know they're getting a lot of attention, but I really haven't had time to go through that yet.
Well, a quick rundown. Obviously, they're up in the woods. He built a logging truck. Now, it does have, they're diesel electric, but the axles themselves, they're not like Tesla. The motor is the differential. You've only got two motors. The battery pack sits between the frame, and it's on an air ride system to absorb a lot of the shock. You've got your generator with your transmission, and then they use a small diesel engine, which basically would just keep the batteries charged when needed and then shut off.
Do you know any of the details on that, like what size and who makes that engine?
The one, they just use a small, I think it was a C7 or a C9 Cat. But he said you can use any engine.
Well, let's think about that for a second, though. C7, that's kind of small. C9 is not all that small of an engine. I mean, that's still a 9-liter diesel engine is still a big diesel engine. Most of the straight trucks running around, that would be probably class 6 or so with engines like that, get about the same fuel economy as an over-the-road truck does. So I'm wondering where the efficiency comes from when you're already including a 9-liter diesel engine. I
don't know why he said the engine's an option. That's just what they used when they built this truck.
Well, I know, but you've got to have something big enough to run a big enough generator to do the job. About the smallest I have seen is down in that 7-liter range, but here they're saying even up to a 9. I get it. You got to have a big enough engine to run a big enough generator to charge a lot of batteries. Here's my first impression, and I don't have enough detail about this to really talk intelligently, but I could see where in a logging operation, building a truck like this might make a lot of sense. Electric motors have tons of torque instantly. That would be a huge advantage in an off-road operation. It's a lot of stop and go, which is another good use of a hybrid kind of a system. None of that translates to over the road. Not even close. These two operations are so wildly different that thinking that...
And that's what he built.
No, I know.
You're not going to find a charger station on the side of a mountain.
Well, I understand that too. This is why it makes sense here, but I'm not sure that this is going to be any more efficient. There's not a whole lot of efficiency in logging anyway. Use a lot of fuel for the little bit of miles you might travel. The fuel economy is awful in that operation, but that's not the core of that operation. So I get where I think he's on the right track here. This might make a lot of sense in operations like this. Diesel hybrids. I don't know. Here's the thing I'd want to see from somebody. I want to see overall cost of ownership.
Yeah, well, again, what he built was a prototype. I mean, this thing, the diesel only comes on, it runs at a steady RPM, and, then it kicks back off. He has to have this thing inspected in order to become a manufacturer, so he can't even drive it on the road yet. But, there's a lot more to it than, just throwing an engine.
So,
I mean, he built this thing from scratch.
Well, and here's
kind of goofy looking, but...
Well, here's what has to happen, too. That whole process of having a vehicle, any vehicle, certified to be legal on the roads is incredibly complicated and expensive. The way I see it, the path forward for this company is somebody would have to buy them at some point. I do not see this company being able to take this truck and this concept and bring it to the point where it's street legal. Remember that goofy little car that I put a deposit on, the Elio, that three-wheeler?
Yep.
They had a lot of money invested trying to bring that car to market, and they failed. Do you know why it was three wheels? It wasn't because of efficiency. The only reason
approved as a car.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They looked at it and said trying to bring a brand new vehicle to market and getting it approved through the DOT is so time consuming and expensive. They decided to make it a three-wheeler so it could be classified as a motorcycle. Then it's easier. They wouldn't even take on the task of, trying to make a four-wheel automobile, bring a new one into the market. Now, trucks are even more complicated. So I don't see a company of this size, no matter how many investors they get, being able to do this. I think they'd almost have to be bought by somebody who could bring it to market. And in that vocational market, it might make sense. But almost none of that translates into over the road.
Well, he's actually talking about converting a diesel engine truck, pulling the motor, trans, drive shaft, and rear axles, and converting everything over to hybrid electric. That's his main focus. Now, I don't know what the engine doesn't run all the time, so I don't know what, obviously it's going to, the load, how long the battery's going to last, but they need charging. And,
so,
in some areas it might make sense, but, over 100% electric, in some areas, yeah, I think it would make sense.
Well, and I'm going to come back to the same thing, whether it's full electric, hybrid electric, hydrogen electric, any of these alternatives. The one thing we're not seeing, and the only thing that really matters to me on any of this technology is it cost effective? We are in an industry where the margins are so small that you can't afford to pay for some crazy expensive technology. And we're not seeing that. You know, how long, if we're going to put a Cat C9 in this thing, it's got to meet all the emission requirements. And those emissions have to be, every time we have new emission requirements, they've got to meet those same emission requirements. That's a fairly expensive
Even
engine.
though it's not powering the truck, it's just powering a generator.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Exempt from some.
Now, look at our APUs in California aren't exempt from anything. They've got specific rules on those too. The EPA is not going to allow a non-emission engine on any part of a truck like this. Reefers, generators, APUs, they're just not going to allow it. So you've still got emissions to deal with on that engine. How long is that engine going to last? Will we have some rebuild cycle on it? I don't know. How long are these batteries going to last? What's the replacement cost of the batteries? There are so many questions about this, and I just don't see a lot of numbers anywhere.
True, but who knows? Maybe someday it'll be. They'll have it out, but
well,
the guy's pretty. I know you don't.
He's obviously really sharp. There's no doubt.
When you listen to the guy talk.
Yeah, he's really sharp. There's no doubt. This guy's intelligent. He's gotten a lot accomplished already. I'm not saying he's not going to pull this off, and he might have a really good use for a hybrid. This may be a perfect truck for out there in the woods. I don't know. Yeah, and I'd much rather see him doing this, improving things, than, the government forcing stuff on us.
Yeah. Well, that's about it. I've got other stuff, but I'm going to try to get in tomorrow and talk to Leroy or Bruce or something here about some things. But anyway, have a good one, Kevin.
All right. Thanks for the call. All right. Let's go to the phones. Phone lines are open. It is a free-for-all. If you want to jump in and join us, use your call-in button on the app. That will work, or the number today, and it's always subject to change these days, 319-527-6791. Let's head off to Tennessee. Nick, welcome to the program.
Hey, I've got a request. I want to hear from one of your listeners, my new hero. You had Matt text you, I think, maybe on Friday with his fuel numbers for the year, and the guy is getting, did you say 8.4 miles a gallon for the year?
We're talking about Matt's numbers. I think I was talking about his last week. Let me look.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think he texted you, said he got 8.4 for the year. And he's running, I think, like a 98 Kenworth T600 with a cat motor, maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I would love to hear his recipe. What he's running, what is what he's done to his truck, how he drives, all that good stuff. I mean, that's an incredible number for a truck that year.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple things about this number too. He runs hard. For the year, he was at 157,000 miles. That's one driver. He runs back and forth from Minnesota to Florida. So he's got some issues there. You've got, tough winter weather in half or more of his trip. But running that hard, he's not out driving 55 all the time. He's got to run harder than that. So the other thing, 8.43 was the average. His range is nice and tight, too. His worst tank in an entire year was basically 7.96. That was his worst tank. His best was 9.5. That's a tight range. To be up that high and keep it that tight, it's really consistent. Clearly his driving helps. Matt's been driving for a long, long time. He's been driving for fuel economy for a long, long time. And he has done probably all of the modifications we talk about are darn close to it. But those are incredible numbers.
Yeah, and another thing, too, is he's not putting depth in that truck.
No.
So, you put that against today's truck, he's saving even more money.
Yeah, his costs are low. Well, I also posted Matt's overall numbers. Matt always shares his P&L with us. I talk about it online all the time and on the air. He is still, I think, last year, he still netted significantly over 200,000. That's not just good fuel mileage. That is just a I don't know that you can run one truck any more profitably than that.
Right. Yeah, no, those are awesome numbers. I'd love to, like I said, I'd love to hear his recipe, what all he's done to the truck, and his, what he's pulling, what kind of, his driving habits, all that stuff.
We'll get him in here.
Maybe we can get to the call.
Yeah. We'll have him join me on an open sometime soon, and we'll talk about all that.
Yeah, sweet. One other thing, got a driver, a friend of mine that worked for a company that's based out of California, and he just received an email from them basically saying to not worry about all this new screening, whatnot in California. It sounds like it's kind of getting put on hold for another year. They got a lot of trucks that would not be compliant, but they told them just to keep running, and it sounds like it's not going to go down this year. So
good.
Be interesting to see what happens there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame that we have allowed one state like California to hold the entire trucking industry hostage.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Isn't was the Interstate Commerce Act? Is it? I mean, it's kind of violating that, is it not?
There's several, federal regulations that this doesn't really jive with. One being the Interstate Commerce Act, and that's the whole point of it. And look, I'm a big believer in states' rights. I love the idea that the federal government has very, very limited power, or they're supposed to. We've gotten so far off track, our government doesn't run anything like the way it was supposed to run. But the federal government was supposed to have very few powers. And if it isn't specifically stated in the Constitution that it's the federal government's area, then it's up to the states. And I love that system. But there are some exceptions, and this would be one. When you have an industry that has to operate in all of those states at any given moment, then you've got to have some protection for an industry like that these states can't do all this crazy stuff. And yet we've allowed California to do that, and we shouldn't. But here we are.
Right. Yeah, and, we got all these groups that are always trying to make things for the trucker better. I wish we could make all states have the same regulations. It's ridiculous, the different regulations in each state that we've got to deal with. If everything was universal, it would make our lives a whole lot easier. Especially, these guys, they're all oversized. Got to.
You're right. All the crazy, goofy regulations about weight and axles and distance and all kinds of crazy stuff. Bridge laws being different everywhere. Look, if most businesses, if I own a restaurant, unless I start franchising, I'm only ever going to deal with the regulations in one state. So that's not a big deal. But in trucking, all of us have to deal with all kinds of different states, and we should have standardized regulations for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Kevin, that's all I got. I'll let you carry on.
All right, thanks for the call. All right, we had a huge list of calls there. We dropped a couple, and we've blown through some, but we have lines open. I have some other topics I could talk about, but if you want to jump in and join us, now would be the time. 319-527-6791. Let's go to New Jersey. Darren, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for taking my call.
What's on your mind today?
I think Morgan was going to send over my profit gauges report.
All right.
I think she said she sent it over to you.
I've got it here in front of me.
I just wanted you to go over it. I'm pretty happy with my numbers. It's the first year I've actually used profit gauges for a full year, and I just guess wanted you to critique it maybe and let me know if you see anything that I could improve on.
Wow. First off, tell me about your operation while I look at your numbers.
So I'm the guy that hauls pallets from Pennsylvania out to New Jersey. I called in a couple times. I have a Freightliner Coronado glider kit with a 12 7-liter Detroit. Got 264 gears, got a lift axle on it. I run direct 57 mile an hour, and I pulled drop deck, loaded one way, empty one way. So pretty much go to New Jersey almost every day and come home. So I'm home every night.
So I have a little bit of experience with this, not a lot. When I was running around local in Northeast Ohio, at one point I had a route that I had about 2 hours in the middle of the day where there was almost nothing to do usually. I'd get my deliveries done early. Most of my pickups were later in the day, and I had this hole in the middle of the afternoon. And because it was local, it was right there by where I lived. I knew a bunch of people. I knew this guy that had started a pallet company. And he always needed pallets moved around, either, picking up old pallets and bringing them to him so he could repair them, or when he was done with them, I would take them to somebody else. He would sell them. And I would do that. I would help him out occasionally when I had time in the middle of the week, and he would call me. My understanding was that pallets just don't pay all that well. And that was certainly my experience then. I'm shocked that you are running pallets one way and empty the other, and you're pulling down these kind of numbers.
Yeah, and I'm actually, so I run, there is like pallet shops all over my area. Like there's probably, I'd have to count, there's at least 10, there could be 20. There's a bunch of Amish in the area, and everyone does pallets. So like, I know a lot of pallet haulers, and like, so I'm actually one of the lower rate fellows in the area.
Really?
Like there's guys that are actually, oh yeah. Like my rate right now, I just dropped a little bit because fuel prices come down. I'm at 505 on my loaded miles, and my competition is at about, the average would be about 540 to 560.
Wow. So just to go over your numbers so people understand here, you only drove 81,000 miles. You drove about half of what Matt did. Half. I mean, that's a big, big difference. But your overall rate per mile on all miles, $2.65 a mile. Considering that you're running half empty, that is really strong. And when you are loaded, you're light. And your profit per mile is outstanding. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're empty one way. You don't spend a lot of time sitting around anywhere looking for freight. You've got loads, they go out, you come right back. There's a lot of advantages to an operation like this, and you are profiting $1.82 a mile. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I got two drop decks, so I got one gets loaded while I'm out delivering. I don't even load my own loads. Like all I got to do is walk around the trailer, check the straps. They load it, strap it down, and when I get out, I pull my straps, and the company unloads me. My unload time is about a half hour to an hour, somewhere in that range, and I just keep doing the turns.
On 81,000 miles, pulling pallets one way and empty the other, you made almost $150,000 net. Congratulations. What an awesome operation.
Yep. And this is when everyone, not everyone, but I keep hearing people say how bad it is. So this is
we just stopped short of calling 2023 a bloodbath. And I think the reason we didn't is because the first half of the year wasn't all that bad. It started to get bad. Now it's ugly out there right now. There's some pretty rough stuff out there. But on the other hand, the people who have been doing things right for years now, it has really paid off. Not only did it protect them in a downtime, but it's almost like the downtime hasn't even happened for a lot of you guys yet. Like Matt's numbers in 2023 were incredible. Your numbers are still awesome. These are just crazy good numbers. And technically, I think we're at the bottom right now. I don't think there's much farther to go down. And it seems like some people, they're just not participating in the recession. You're one of them. Right.
Yeah. On my fuel mileage, I wanted to go over too. So I started listening to you in 2019. It was the first I heard you. So I just went back on, I'm on fuel gauges. So in 2019, my average for the entire year, all miles, was 6.57. 2020, I was 7.14. 2020, wait, I'm wrong. The first year was 2020. 2020, I was 6.57. 2021 was 7.14. 2022 was 7.7. And then this year, 2023, was 8.52.
Wow. Wow.
So that's just from listening to you and putting everything into practice that I learned from you. So, I can't wait to see what 2024 does.
Congratulations. We were just talking about maintenance cost with Paul, and Paul being a car hauler, we know he's got higher maintenance cost. He was really happy with 29 cents a mile on maintenance. And you are, where did I just saw this a minute ago? Where are you on maintenance? 14 cents a mile, half of what Paul spends.
Yeah.
But
I even bought a trailer this year. I'm trying to think. So I bought a trailer, and there was the tires. None of the tires needed replaced, but I can't stand mismatched tires. So I went out and bought a full set of brand new tires in there. So that's even on that. So I would have been even lower if I would have just if I wouldn't be so crazy about having matching tires. But I can't stand mismatch.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I lose sleep at night.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I love seeing numbers like this.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot. That's what I had in mind. So I can let you run and get to more phone calls.
All right. Thanks for the call. I've been through a lot of these downturns since I bought my first truck in '86. I've never seen one like this. I've never seen one that took so long to get here. I've never seen one that the numbers were just so confusing. What's the stock market doing? What's the economy doing? What's trucking doing? Lots of things that haven't made sense. I've also never seen one where a whole bunch of people seem to just not be participating in this recession. I know a lot of very small fleets and single truck owner operators that are still doing really well. That's good news. I love to see that. Let's continue with the calls. If you want to jump in and join us, it is a Monday free for all. Pick up the phone and give me a call. Let's go to Alaska. Jesse, welcome to the program.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Good. Actually, in Arkansas.
Arkansas. Okay. I was going to say I don't get many calls from Alaska, but that's all right.
Yes, sir. I'm a new listener. I just started listening to your show maybe end of last year, very end of December.
Welcome.
And I've been really enjoying it so far, and just finally got the courage to call in and ask a question.
Good. What can I help you with today?
I would just I'm looking to transition to be an owner-operator with my company. I'd be working under, pretty much leasing onto them with my truck.
Okay.
And we pull dry bulk, food-grade dry bulk and pneumatic tanks.
Okay.
And I was just saying, what kind of truck would you recommend on that? Obviously, I know it's got to be a mid-roof and, something I got to equip a blower on, or they're going to equip the blower and everything. But, I'm seeing trucks everywhere, and everyone's recommending, you got to do Peterbilt, Kenworth. But, I'm not looking to start out,
Let's start with the real basics here. First off, you are exactly right. A mid-roof may be one of the most important things because it's not something you can easily modify later. So we do want to match the height of that trailer. A mid-roof on a dry bulk is just about perfect. This idea of, when I hear this, it just kind of makes my skin crawl a little bit. When I hear, well, what kind of truck? Should it be a Peterbilt or a Volvo? The actual truck itself isn't all that important. What is important is the drive line, the engine, transmission, differentials, those kind of things. Now, it does matter because Peterbilt offers certain options and Volvo offers certain options and International has their options, but it's not the make of the truck that matters. Not much, anyway. That's more, what do you like? What do you feel comfortable in? Those kind of things. And do you have a good dealer nearby? A good maintenance shop that would work on that kind of truck? I really... The only reason I'm picky about the truck itself is the drive line that it offers me. For example, when I was buying trucks and operating trucks, my favorite combination, this was late 90s, early 2000s, my favorite combination was a Volvo truck because I could still get a Detroit engine in it, a 60 series. A Volvo with a 60 series
that's
Detroit.
What I was looking at was possibly a Volvo.
Yeah, late 90s, early 2000s, absolutely loved those trucks. After 2001, you could no longer get a Detroit engine in a Volvo truck because Freightliner owned Detroit engines. So I actually switched from buying and speccing Volvos at the time to buying and speccing Freightliners so I could get the Series 60. I didn't like the Freightliner as much. Quality wasn't there. Cabs were noisy. There's lots of reasons. I preferred the Volvos, but the most important factor to me was the driveline. So I was willing to put up with the Freightliner that I wasn't crazy about because I got the driveline that I liked. So it really, I almost ignore the nameplate on the truck. It's the driveline I'm looking for. Now, it just so happens
Absolutely.
we're back at a place where I do really prefer Volvos again, but now it's for their engine and their driveline. I think they have the best combination in the industry between the engine that we can run at such low RPMs. It's really efficient. I mean, I'm talking 900 RPMs going down the road. That we can run these Volvo engines down that low. They last forever like that. They're getting crazy good fuel economy. We're not having emission issues. So that's my preference now. But we got to take a step back. And first off, we have to talk about what's your budget. How much do you want to spend on a truck?
Right now, I'm wanting to keep it for a first-time buyer. You know, I'm thinking under 100,000.
Absolutely under 100,000. I would probably revise that south by about 50,000.
Okay.
I honestly,
It's the only thing that kind of
in today's market, I would not want to spend more than $50,000 on a new startup.
absolutely.
The rates are down, the volumes are down. You have got to run. Now, I am all for starting at the bottom. I've been talking about that a lot. But the reason we start at the bottom, it is going to force you to cut your costs before you even get started. You know, all the people that got into the industry the last 3 years, none of them looked at expenses at all. Nobody cared. Oh, I can get $3.50, $4 a mile. Who cares about fuel mileage? Who cares about expenses? That was the attitude. And
Not realizing that's going to end pretty quick.
Yeah, it's ended. That party's over. So now, if you're going to get into business right now, which I think it is a good time, you just have to force yourself to say, I've got to make sure I cut my expenses to the bone before I even turn the key the first time. So the biggest factor in that is buying a good, reasonably priced, maybe even high mileage truck. I mean, we might be looking at something that has 600,000-700,000 miles on it.
Yeah, that was the first thing that kind of scared me at first was real high mileage, you know.
Well,
not knowing where it was coming from, but
let me allay your fears here. I have 30 plus years of buying trucks, both new and used. I had more problems with brand new trucks in the first year I owned them than any other truck I bought, except once I made a huge mistake buying a used truck. I didn't follow my own system, and I ended up with one of those trucks that just almost broke me with expenses. But it was my fault. I had a system. Right. I was in a hurry. I didn't follow my own advice, and I bought a truck without. I just trusted the dealer I had been using for years, and I shouldn't have because he didn't know all that stuff. We that's why I talk about all the inspections. Pull an oil sample, download a full ECM report. So I can tell you that buying a new truck and having a big payment, big insurance cost, and then having it break down and be in the shop over and over is way more stressful and expensive.
Oh, yeah.
That warranty is almost worthless when it takes them 3 or 4 days to get my truck back out. And then when I get it out, it's not right again and I got to go back. And that's a common thing with warranty work. So
Definitely.
New trucks to me make sense when you're already in business and you have the cash flow to handle a new truck. You've got plenty of money to put down on it, so we're not getting killed with finance costs. That's when a new truck makes sense, and we're going to take advantage of the newest technology. You know, for example, we can build a Volvo today that gets 10 miles to the gallon in almost every operation, other than the extremes. That's pretty incredible. But we have to spend an awful lot of money to do that, and that's risky. So we can also we're looking at Matt with an older truck getting 8 miles to the gallon. We've got Steve Crone with an 01 truck getting over 9 miles to the gallon and occasionally 10. I mean, we can still get really, really good fuel mileage numbers with 20-year-old trucks. So I would revise your budget down to about 50. Now, how much cash do you have to put down on the truck?
As of right now, between 7,000 and 10,000.
Then that 50 makes a lot of sense. 100 is way too much for you to be spending, especially with interest rates.
Right.
I mean, you're gonna every dollar you borrow right now is going to cost you a lot more because our interest rates are so high. That's another reason we've got to drop that truck cost, because the higher we go on that budget, the bigger our budget has to become for interest cost. So the good news is there's lots of really dependable, efficient trucks on the market right now at $50,000. I mean, I wouldn't have any problem buying a $50,000 truck today. There's lots of good stuff on the market.
I wouldn't either. Exactly what you said. It was my plan. Start off small and then see how it goes, and then, budget from there and then get a nicer, maybe newer truck.
Yep. That's the way to go. So I would be looking probably in that budget around a 15 or 16 Volvo. We can get down to, specifics. It's going to have I'm going to want it to have a Volvo engine, the I-Shift transmission, good high gear ratios so we can get the RPM down. What I would have you do right now is start looking at that market. So you start to get familiar with the models, the options, and once you kind of identify a couple trucks that maybe you're interested in that ballpark, then call me if you've got 2 or 3 you're looking at. We'll start to go over them, and we'll start to get more specific about what you should be looking for.
Absolutely. One last question on financing for an older truck. Is that a little bit more complicated, looking at an older truck closer to the 15-year model?
It's only complicated if you are trying to buy it from an individual. In fact, it's almost impossible. Okay. There are a few finance companies out there that might work with you. If you had really good credit and, a good relationship with the local bank or credit union, you could do it. Buying from a dealer is drop dead simple. They have multiple finance companies. You fill out an application, they'll find somebody to finance it for you. And if they don't, then you shouldn't have one anyway. I mean, if there's some problem with your credit, do you know what your credit score is?
I got, I don't know how accurate Credit Karma is. I don't go by it. I know it's give or take, points, but closer to the 800. I mean, I financed the house, made all my payments on time.
You're fine. You're not going to have any trouble whatsoever with financing. If you've got $10,000 down, you're looking at a $50,000 truck, and you've got over $700 or $750, which it sounds like. One thing on the Credit Karma, I read something the other day. I realized that there are multiple different credit scores. You don't have one credit score. You have multiple different scores calculated different ways. Some mortgage companies use one specific score. Some car companies use a different one. If it's a personal loan, they'll use something else. I was reading an article the other day, and I think I read something like there are actually 30 some different formulas for credit scores.
Oh, wow.
It's just all over the board. But what I can tell you is you are up in a range where we don't even have to think about it. If you're anywhere near 800, we don't even have to think about it. You're going to get financed just fine.
Gotcha. Now, on the down payment part, what he's talking about, after I get established and everything, I want to pay myself back that down payment, will that be taxed again, or how does that work?
No, you are in your first year. We're going to want you to operate as a sole proprietor, and as a sole proprietor, you do whatever you want with the money you earn or with the money the company earns. So as a sole proprietor, you have gross revenue coming in, then you pay all your expenses, and whatever is left over is yours. Now, whatever is left over is what you're going to pay tax on, no matter what you do with it. That is your taxable revenue. That's your personal revenue. Then after you pay tax on it, you can do anything you want. You could start paying down the debt in the company, which is a good idea. And you can just ignore taxes at that point. Now, in the second year, we're going to look and see, is there a reason for you to become incorporated? And the only reason in my book is will it lower your taxes? And that all comes down to the numbers. So after the first year is over, we look at your gross revenue, your expenses, your net revenue, and does it make sense to incorporate? Can we lower your tax? And if so, then we would form a corporation. Nothing really changes all that much. Your money is still all the profit that's left over.
Yes, sir. Well, I definitely appreciate the talk and the information, sir.
Sounds like you're on the right track. Congratulations, and stay in touch. I'd like to help you out throughout the process. You've got a good plan going, so congratulations. I love seeing this stuff when we're at the bottom and people are still doing well, and we've got other people getting into business. Things are tough right now, there's no doubt, but it's different than I've seen in the past when we've been at this point of recession like this. There's still some good news out there, so we'll keep an eye on it. All right, we are out of calls. I have got a couple things I'm going to look through my notes here. If you want to jump in, I'll hang out here for a minute or two. 319-527-6791. Just some real odds and ends here I wanted to go over while I'm waiting for some calls. One, I read an article this morning I was shocked about. I didn't realize this. It was an article about unions. Unions trying to kind of get back into the trucking world, not having a whole lot of success. I did not realize this. Union membership in the United States actually peaked in 1950. I had no idea. If somebody would have asked me that question and I had to guess, I probably would have said I would have thought it peaked around 1975 or so. I had no idea it had peaked that early and really has been declining ever since. The article talked about the fact that over-the-road trucking companies are almost impossible to organize for unions because they can't get the drivers together in one place to organize them. So LTL companies, more local stuff. There's been a renewed push by the unions to try to break into some of those companies and markets. I don't really see it happening. But I was just shocked by that statistic. The other thing I've been keeping an eye on that seems really interesting, I don't know if you've been watching what's going on in Germany. Over in Europe, as well as here, there seems to be a coordinated effort and a coordinated attack on agriculture, farming. Whether you want to believe it's part of the Great Reset they're talking about or whatever is going on in the world, there's some evidence that it looks like they may be trying to control our food supply. Certainly, if you control the food, you can control the people. I don't know if that's what's going on or not, but it certainly seems like it. The Europeans are fighting back. First, the Dutch farmers. Now, the German farmers organized a massive protest and shutdown. Now they're being joined by the trucking industry and a couple other industries. And from what I can see and read, these are pretty massive protests. They're shutting down entire cities. I can't imagine what would happen if that were done here. It looks like it's fairly peaceful over there, but I'm keeping an eye on that because that seems to be growing. What else do I have here? This was another shocking statistic I saw. It looks like FedEx is about to lose a big contract with the post office. Now, I knew that FedEx moves a lot of freight for the post office, mostly their air freight. So there's a bunch of different partnerships between FedEx and the post office and UPS and the post office, and both ways. The post office delivers some of FedEx packages on what they call the last mile. And then on the other hand, FedEx moves a lot of post office packages and mail through their planes. But I guess that may be coming to an end. But the number I was shocked by was that FedEx moved almost $2 billion worth of mail under this contract. And from what I gather, it's not even all that profitable. So the post office is spending a lot of our money, $2 billion, on moving mail on airplanes, and I guess they're going to stop. That's good news to me. Our mail does not need to move on airplanes. Move it on trucks. Anything that needs to go overnight, sure, put it on a plane. But most of our stuff does not need to get to us that fast. And the post office is horribly inefficient and wastes a ton of our money. So it's good news to see this, but I was a little shocked. That's a big hit for FedEx. They are talking about the fact that if they don't renew this contract, and it doesn't look like they're going to, they will have an awful lot of pilots out of work. We already have a lot of pilots out of work. On the other hand, it seems like we have a shortage of pilots, and they're extending the age. This is the same kind of stuff I've been talking about. We have so many confusing, contradicting factors in our economy. It's hard to figure anything out these days. It looks like phone calls are coming in, so we'll get those screened, and I'll grab a couple more calls here in just a minute. A couple other things. I've got a health issue. I may talk about this more on Wednesday if I get time. I need to do some research. The evidence coming in about how unhealthy sitting is for us is getting stronger and stronger. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while. A couple of years back, somebody came out with a study that said sitting is the new smoking. It's that bad for our health. It's always a challenge for us in this industry. I just experienced it with my trip. So during my trip, I normally do my show standing up, wandering around the studio. When I'm in the coach, it's just not practical. So when I'm in the coach traveling and doing the show, I tend to sit and do the show. I could get up and stand, and I think next time I take a trip, I'm going to make sure that I have the equipment I need to make it easier for me to stand and do the show, even in the coach where I don't have a lot of room. So during that trip, I did a lot of sitting while I was doing the show, did a lot of sitting while I was driving. I wasn't nearly as active as I am when I'm at home for a lot of reasons. And I can show the numbers in health. My HRV, which I really do believe is the single most important number we should be watching for health, something that we can measure every day. My HRV bottomed out in the low 30s, and I felt it. When I was down at 30, I did not feel good. I would have good mornings. You know, I would get up, a little bit of caffeine, I'd feel great, I'd have a good morning. By the afternoon, I was just dragging. I wasn't thinking as clearly, just not nearly as active. And my HRV just kept going lower and lower and lower, down into the low 30s. Now, when I got home, I get back into my normal routine. I'm standing up, walking around, doing my show. I was out at the homestead over yesterday and very active. I'm paying for it today. I'm pretty sore. But my HRV is now in the low 50s, not the low 30s. And that's all I changed. Actually, I'm not eating as good as I was when I was on the road. So my diet is not as good as it was during the trip. My activity levels are much better, and you can see it in my HRV and my body battery. I mean, there was a time when my HRV was down in the 30s. There were many days I'd wake up, my body battery would be 15 at the start of the day. And I just did not feel all that great. Now my body battery's up in the 80s, you know, a lot of mornings. My HRV's climbed up into the low 50s. And it's not diet. My diet actually got worse. It's just that activity. Now, it's not intense activity at all. I have not started up my stress protocol yet, getting ready to do that this week. This is simply a little more activity throughout the day. That's all that I've changed. And my HRV has gone way up because of it. So I'm going to be doing some more research on I got to think through this. The recommendations are to try to get a certain amount of movement in every hour, and that when we sit for 3 or 4 or 5 hours without getting any activity, that's the worst case scenario. Well, that's the life of a truck driver. We can't, when you're at an office, work at a desk, it's easy to take a break every hour if you want. It's really easy. It's not easy in the truck at all. It's not easy when you're traveling and you've got hours of service and schedules and all that stuff. It's not practical even. But I've got to come up with some ideas and some strategies on this, because the statistics are really pretty awful. Speaking of awful statistics, and then I'm going to get to the calls, the latest report, 38% of Americans are obese. Not overweight, obese. 38%. We are seeing an explosion of these new weight loss drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, and it looks like the pharmaceutical companies are doubling down on this, and they're designing and already testing more powerful drugs for weight loss. Now, these weight loss drugs are all similar in that they originally work on a hormone called GLP-1, which has an impact on appetite. And that's why they're working as weight loss drugs. But they also slow down digestion. There's some nasty side effects to these. The newer, more powerful drugs are going to start working on not only GLP-1, but other hormones around appetite and satiety. I think this is a disaster. And I think we'll probably know how much of a disaster in about 5 to 10 years. Now, if you're paying attention and watching the statistics, you can see it's a disaster already. When we start messing with hormones, and that's what these drugs do, it's hard to tell what kind of results we're going to get. Hormones are really powerful, and all of these drugs work on the hormonal level, and I think it's a really bad idea. And they also create some really nasty side effects. So I'm going to work on that. I'm going to work on some ideas around how do we mitigate the damaging effects of all this sitting. We got to come up with something. Let's get back to some phone calls. Let's go to Tennessee. Ilya, welcome to the program.
Morning, Kevin. How's it going?
Good. What's on your mind?
So I've been working on getting my authority and everything, and switching over from being a company driver to going out on my own for probably just about 2 months now, and it's finally about to be done. I think my authority is about to be approved any day now.
Good. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, and also thank you for your help, because that one of the big motivating factors for me was I've heard of enough people listening to your stuff that came out with not only success, but just the downturns not being so much of an effect on them, like what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm just going to follow everything these guys are doing and just see what happens, just over prepare.
Good.
So also in the middle of all that, I heard you and Joel talking about slowing down and all that stuff. And once in a while, someone would either question it or, doubt it, whatever, oh, you're going to get less miles and this and that. So over these 2 months, my goal was obviously to drive slower as well. So I thought about it oh, maybe I could test it out at my company job before I leave. And that's exactly what I did. So I wanted to let you know what my results were. So the way we run is, ran, I guess, because I left that company already. We all have the same route, which we run 4 rounds a day. We all have either the Mack Anthem, Cascadia, or the Kenworth T880.
Okay.
There's, I think, 30 to 40 trucks total. Mine was limited at 65 miles an hour. We also have trucks that were limited at 68, 69, and then a few that were 75, all running the same route, all running about the same weight. And so mine was basically the slowest. And I also drive slower, around the turns or whatever, because we pull 120 to 130,000 pounds.
Okay.
And I guess the other people, they just fly around the turns, whatever. So every day I'd be driving 65, and the faster trucks would be passing me no problem, like way early in the route. And no matter what, every single time towards the end, we would all be pulling into the gate at the same time. Like even the truck that was going 75 while I'm going 65, he'd pass me way early in the route. And I'm like, all right, he's going to be there way before me.
Right.
At the end, at the gate, 100% of the time, over these 2 months that I tracked this, we're all pulling in at the same time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like not once did that happen. So it's like, I don't even think you get extra miles at the end. And there's nowhere that anyone was stopping. I think it's just between the slowing down with the hills maybe, or the exits or the traffic lights. It just works out to be the same anyway.
Here's what I've always wondered, because I dealt with this when I was at FedEx. The way a FedEx hub works is we have a morning dispatch and an evening dispatch. The morning dispatch, when I was in Orlando, we would have 3 trucks that would do a butt head with Atlanta. We would have 3 trucks that do a butt head with Charlotte. And a butt head means, I would leave the Orlando terminal with a set of doubles, and at the same time that morning, another driver would leave Charlotte, North Carolina. We'd meet in the middle, we'd swap trailer sets, and we'd go back home at night. That was our typical run. And you might have, on that Charlotte run at one point, we had 5 dedicated. I had 3 of them myself. We had 5 dedicated, and we had 2 extras that ran almost every day. So on a typical morning, there might be like 7 sets of doubles leaving Orlando to meet 7 sets meeting Charlotte. And the same thing would happen. I drove 57 miles an hour, and I was one of the early trucks leaving. I had one of the first dedicated runs, and I'd get passed by everybody else on the way up there. But then I'd get up there, and they'd all be hanging out there having lunch or bullshitting or whatever they do. And I would get in. I always took my own lunch with me. I'd swap trailers. I'd get back on the road. I'd, grab something to eat while I'm driving. And then they'd all pass me on the way back. And we'd all get to the yard, and they'd still be there dropping their trailers when I pulled in. And I was getting probably 2 and sometimes 3 miles per gallon better on fuel economy, and I wasn't spending any more time at work than they were. I still see it, and we all talk about this. If you drive slow over the road, this can go on for days sometimes. When you're traveling across the country, I'll be on the road doing my thing, and trucks will pass me, and I'm paying attention. I watch the truck. I look at trailer numbers, and later on in the day, that truck will pass me again. And then at the end of the day, I'll pull in someplace to park, and I'll go, oh, look, there's that truck that passed me twice today. And the next day, it'll happen again. Same truck. And I always wonder, is there anybody that drives really fast and also manages their time well? It seems like all the people that drive fast don't know how to manage their time at all.
Yeah. I've looked at some of those other, like, at the end of the day, like, when some of those drivers are done, I went and looked at their trucks, like, fuel economy. And like I said, it's all the same route, about the same weight range that we all have. And their trucks were in the 5s. My truck was like between 6.5 miles per gallon, running the same route.
Yeah, at today's fuel prices, that's probably close to $10,000 a year in savings.
Yep. Yeah, so that like basically proved it for me. And like the whole time I'm thinking, I'm like, this kind of sounds like similar, like how you tested your 3 trucks that you talked about on the same run, like with the modifications or whatever.
Yep.
Kind of got to run the same test for free. So
good.
I feel definitely a lot better about running slower now.
Excellent. Good.
So.
All right. Good update. You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Florida this time. Mike, welcome.
Hey, Kevin.
What's on your mind today?
RV question for you.
Sure.
RVs. I know you're not big on the gas RV, but what we're doing with it, we probably wouldn't put a couple hundred miles on it per year. I mean, we're setting it on an RV lot on the Tennessee River.
Oh yeah.
And we may move it back and forth. What, as far as mileage on a gas RV engine, I mean, would you consider 50,000 miles a lot. I mean, I see some are
Which
real
engine?
low miles.
Which engine?
It's the V10, the Ford Triton, I think they call it.
Oh, yeah. 50,000 on that would be nothing. Nothing. I have to believe that that's a 250,000 mile engine.
Oh, even on a gas?
I would think so,
like I
yeah.
said, we're not going to really drive it. It's more for just to sit there.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the RV world, the engine itself, unless you're getting up to the big, 45-foot tandems, some of those, Tiffin builds some of those that I think are way underpowered. That's the only factors. When you get up to the really big diesel pushers, I want to make sure I've got plenty of horsepower and displacement. Other than that, though, the engine isn't, I was just talking about that. It's the opposite of trucks. On trucks, the engine was everything. I mean, I'm willing to give up the truck that I really like if I can't get the engine I want. In RVs, coaches, it's almost the opposite. There's only a couple engine choices. You're not going to put all that many miles on these things. For me, having an ACERT Cat was never in the playbook, except when I looked at my options and how many miles I knew I was going to put on mine. The engine wasn't the concern. It's the chassis I worry about. And most of the chassis, like you said, you're not going to put many miles on this thing. I would be more concerned about how well the house is built. Are the house systems good, and are they going to hold up? That's a much more important factor than the engine.
Right. Yeah. And I've never had a coach. We've had a fifth wheel in the past, and there's always something to work on.
Always.
I mean, I'm pretty handy.
Right.
I enjoy working on it. I don't really worry about that stuff too much. I'm more worried about it. I can't rebuild an engine.
Yeah.
The other stuff doesn't bother me too bad. And it's got, where we're putting it, it's got a roof on it, so we don't have to worry about the leaks.
Oh yeah. I would. I wouldn't worry much about the engine or the mileage at all. I would focus on the house.
Okay. And it's not going to be, well, I guess they all sit most of their life anyway, so I guess sitting in one spot for
it's the biggest issue. If I look at the breakdowns I have on the road, almost all of them happen within the first 2 days of a trip. And it's because these things just sit. And engines and mechanical stuff works better the more we use it. It's kind of like our body.
Yeah. I just worry about, we're in a, we're like on the bank, and it's going to flood from time to time. That's kind of why we're going with a coach instead of a fifth wheel. If I'm gone and it, starts to flood,
somebody can move it out.
My wife can hook up a trailer and move
yeah.
it. Yeah, she can drive that, though. As long as it starts, that's the only worry I have. I mean, we only have to move it. We've got another little piece of land out of the floodplain, so we only have to move it a quarter mile. But
yeah, I would
got to start and move, though.
I would recommend two things as far as that goes. Either put some solar on there that trickle charges your batteries while it's sitting, or just get an inexpensive battery tender and hook that up. Obviously, if you're in a spot you've got electric, so put a battery tender on it and get yourself a good jump start module, and you'll be all set.
Okay. Sounds good. I appreciate the info.
All right. Thanks for the call. Yeah, I just went through this yesterday. I said I was out at the homestead, and I really haven't. I've got that 1972 Ford farm tractor out there that I kind of love. And then I have a little John Deere, kind of a lawn tractor kind of thing. And I haven't really been out there using either one of those since October. So they sat through October, November, December. Now we're into January. I was out there yesterday, and I'm thinking, boy, I bet I'm going to have a hard time starting these. Now, I had the Ford tractor I put in the garage and put a battery tender on it. It started right up. I was really shocked about the John Deere tractor sitting outside under a cover, but not inside of a building, and I couldn't believe it. Even that thing started right up. Keeping the battery tenders on them really makes a big difference, and they're inexpensive. They don't cost much at all. Let's go to Chicago this time. Iba? Am I pronouncing that right? Help me out here.
Dale's back.
Oh, got it. Okay. All right. What's on your mind today?
Yeah. How are you doing today?
Good.
Okay. I was looking at that BioGaia company.
Okay.
There's one supplement. It is for pregnant women. My daughter-in-law she's 3 months pregnant. Can you take a look if this is a good product?
Well, first off, I could go look, and I'll do that for you. But my bigger concern is, tell me about her diet.
It's a 50-50.
Then I would focus.
A lot of meat.
I would focus far more on improving her diet rather than thinking some supplement's going to make much of a difference.
Oh, okay.
But I will go look at the supplement. In fact, I'll do that right now. What am I looking for here?
I don't know the name. It says pregnant women.
Oh, boy, that could be all kinds of things. I got to have a little more information than that to find it.
Oh, it's from BioGaia company.
All right, let me see if I can figure it out from there. I have a feeling they may have more than one product. A lot of supplement companies do. Okay, could it be BioGaia Protectus Mum? And it says it's
that's it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
all right, so let me look real quick just to see what's in this. This is nothing but a probiotic, and it's a very, very simple probiotic. All this is Lactobacillus reuteri, a very common run-of-the-mill probiotic. My biggest problem with this product is if I'm going to spend $27 on a probiotic, I want it to have a couple more strains. I mean, they've only got one strain in here, and I can't find any numbers right now on what level of probiotic is in this. 100 million CFUs. Yeah, it's not all that high. It's not going to hurt anything to take this. I'm not all that positive it's going to help much. There are better probiotics on the market for pregnancy.
Okay. Actually, she does take L-Rutri yogurt every day.
Yeah, and
make it at home.
That's better than this, and that's really inexpensive to make, and this is $27 a bottle. I'd stick with the yogurt.
Oh.
And if you wanted to add a probiotic, I would add a spore, what's called a spore-based probiotic. You're already eating the yogurt. I would add a spore-based probiotic, which we get the probiotic from the soil. That's what a spore-based is. Enviromedica is our partner company. So if you look in our store, we've got the Enviromedica probiotics. I would add that to the yogurt. That would be a better combination.
Oh, okay. What's the name?
Enviromedica. Just search for Enviromedica. We have a couple different probiotics in there. Either one of them would be fine.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very good. Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
You're
Have
welcome.
A great day.
All right. Take care. Let's go to Minnesota. Matt, we've been talking about you this morning.
Yeah, well, I wasn't listening. I just left home like 15 minutes ago. So.
Yeah, I was talking about your numbers earlier, and now you're calling in to talk about your numbers. Good timing.
Yeah, I got home yesterday afternoon and got all my end-of-the-year stuff updated.
Hey.
I'd like to comment on the speed thing first, and I see Joel had a big post.
Yeah.
Sometime, last summer, I don't remember when, but last year, my dedicated load going south to Florida. They have more than one load some weeks. Guy loads in the dock right next to me, leaves 5 minutes before me. Must have passed me 6 times between Minnesota and Florida. I come rolling around, turning the driveway. Guess who's in front of me at the guard check, checking in at the exact same time?
No way. Oh. Look, if nothing else,
gets you nowhere.
If nothing else, it would make me he had to have stopped 6 times in order to pass you 6 times. That would make me insane. I hate stopping when I'm on the road. I just want to keep going.
Yeah, that's the secret is
just keep going.
Efficiency.
Yes.
efficiency in how you operate and efficiency on your
Stop.
planned stops and all that.
The only advantage I can even come up with to stopping 6 times, part of my open today, I talked about more and more research coming out about how unhealthy it is to sit and be inactive. The only advantage I could see to stopping 6 times is maybe I can get out and be a little more active, but that would make me insane to stop 6 times in the same day.
Yeah. Well, and you really think the average truck driver that's driving fast and stopping more is going for a walk around the park?
No,
or on the truck stop when they stop?
No, they're not. They're not. But, there's another factor here, too. Stopping 6 times or even 3 times in a day, just the stopping itself is inefficient. You lose fuel economy as you're stopping. You lose fuel economy to get to the truck stop or wherever the hell you're stopping all these times. You lose fuel economy to get back up to speed again. That is just really inefficient for both time and fuel.
And that's one, I guess, advantage of running my dedicated run. I have all my planned stops, like Henry talks about.
Right.
I never stop at the bottom of a hill on a downhill ramp where you pull up the ramp and then you're pulling a hill as soon as getting from rolling.
Right.
I plan efficient stops.
Yes. Yeah.
I rarely stop somewhere where the stop has to be on the left side of the interstate, because then I got to make a left and cross over the interstate, and
that's right.
That just ain't worth it to me.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah,
let me
go ahead.
Let me run something by you. I don't think you were listening during this call. I had somebody else call me and share their profit gauges numbers. I'm going to describe an operation to you, and I think you're going to be as shocked as I was. Here's the operation. He moves pallets one way and comes back empty with a step deck. Pallets one way, empty the other. His profit per mile. Profit. $1.82 a mile.
Yeah, I believe he's called the show in the past. I've heard this story.
Yeah,
somewhere.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
and he ran about half of what you do. He ran 80,000 miles, and he netted. He took home just under $150,000. That's incredible.
Yep. Yeah. Well, he's beating me because my profit's only $1.77.
I know, that's what I mean. On pallets one way and empty the other.
50% empty.
Yeah. Yeah. Great stuff.
Well, I just in the month of December finally met a couple of my goals that I didn't think I was going to hit for the year. One of them was overall expenses.
Yeah.
I was at $1.05, $1.06. I think actually $1.08 at one point throughout the year. I had some pretty major upgrades I did throughout the year.
Yeah.
And got it down to 99 cents.
Nice.
For the total for the year.
Nice.
So I was very happy with that.
That's a good place to be.
And the other one, what you're looking at is total fuel, both truck and reefer. So when I looked at the detailed report, my truck, I got it down to 39 cents. I got under 40.
Wow.
I'm 3 cents on reefer fuel per mile.
And tell us again how old your truck is and how many miles are on it.
Well, it's a 02 truck with I don't know exactly because the speedometer was changed before I bought it, but say 2.3 million, maybe coming up on 2.5. The engine is a 99 cat, 13 speed, but I did change it. I got 253 rear ends. The engine has, oh boy, it probably has close to 700,000 on it now. It's a Reman engine, just dropped in, but
yeah, that's so
old school stuff.
Yeah, to get down to 39 cents a mile with that truck is incredible. You're getting good fuel economy. You're buying fuel at good prices in good places. Your maintenance cost for the year was kind of high. But like you said, there was a lot of big upgrades in there. I mean, you're at 40 cents for the year. The good news is your profit per mile is still insane at $1.77, and you run so many miles. couldn't you have done me a favor? Couldn't you have squeezed another $600 worth of revenue in there somewhere so I could have said you made $275,000?
Yeah, but I'm down quite a bit from the year before.
Yeah.
I was over 300 last year.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Yeah. Great numbers.
But then, I know I get these questions and I see it online. Why run so hard for that kind of money? And there is a reason. We're buying property and.
Well, wait.
There is a time frame, and I have a goal to write a check for a 40-acre piece of land.
Perfect.
I'm not getting a loan.
But let's think about something. So one, it's your finances are incredible because of this. But when somebody says, "Why would you run that hard for that kind of money?" Well, why wouldn't you run hard when you can profit this much? I mean, this makes more sense than running hard when there's hardly any profit.
Yep. I don't think it was meant for. I worded that wrong.
Okay.
Why I keep working so hard is because when I've already made good money, and it's for a reason, and it's not a long-term plan. I have less than a year left of this, and then I can start slowing way down.
And you're young.
Well, I don't feel as young as I used to.
Well, of course not. But as far as what's considered retirement age, you're young that you're able to now start saying, "Look, if I want to slow down, I can."
Yeah. And just speaking of age, today's Angie's birthday.
You would think I would know that. But just so she doesn't feel bad, I don't know any of our employees' birthdays unless somebody tells me. I come from a family of 7. And I only know one of my siblings' birthdays, and the only reason I can remember that one is because it's Groundhog Day. Other than that, I don't know anybody's birthday. So, happy birthday, Angie.
Yeah. So, I turned 47 a month ago.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We're talking about retirement age. You're still young.
Yeah. I'm 13 years behind you, and
that's right.
As long as it stays that way, we're both doing good, right?
We're in good shape. That's right. Yeah, my biggest challenge is when I first started trying to plan for my retirement, I had no idea that I was going to live to be 100. Well, now I'm pretty confident of that, so I had to make some adjustments.
Yeah. So, speaking of that, did you notice the S&P 500 2 weeks ago, in between Christmas and New Year's?
I thought I saw a day where
it came within 5 points of breaking the record.
Yeah. I am still so shocked by the market, I don't even know what to say.
No. But so now that the record was January 3rd or 4th, I can't remember, of 2022. So we're now officially more than 2 years off of the top.
Sheesh. But it like I've been saying forever, nothing about this economy makes much sense anymore.
No. When you look at historically what we call recessions, it is only about, and we lost 22% in the stock market.
Yeah.
They measure recessions different ways, but if you're just looking at the stock market and their historic recessions, it's about 20%, and it's usually short-lived.
Yeah.
But this one's dragging on because we got other issues.
I still think that the market's got to pull way back from where it is, but I don't know. It's hard to predict anything anymore.
Well, and that's we're just getting our middle child signed up for his first loan ever. Well, he did have an automobile loan. He's I think it's February 17th, 23 years old, and is signing a mortgage.
Ooh, I know. Scary. Just went through that with my son, and it's just scary. What a crazy... the stock market's one thing. The real estate market's been just crazy, too. Hard to predict. Nothing acting or reacting the way you think it should. I would have expected we would have had a much bigger pullback in real estate than we've had so far.
And so talking to realtors here the last couple of months, looking with them and all that, they got the exact opposite opinion in the real estate world. with the talk of interest rates coming down, they think real estate's going to boom this year.
The problem I have with
Which
that,
I don't believe.
I don't believe it either, and here's why I don't believe it. Inflation is through the roof, and people are being laid off. Layoffs are common. Prices keep going up. That is not a market that's good for real estate at all.
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have any predictions either, especially in a election year. You know, we're only a week away from Iowa. I think I can't remember the date, but it's coming up.
Not only an election year, but a crazy election year where they're trying to get Trump off the ballot in several states. We got to fight that. I've read stories that there are states that are trying to make sure Biden is the only Democrat on the ballot. We're seeing stuff around elections that we've never seen before. This year, unfortunately, all we're going to hear about in the news this year is the election. I mean, it is going to dominate the coverage for the rest of the year, I think, once the primaries start.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know my history well enough, but I do know a couple of these facts are true without going back and looking up if it's ever happened more than once. But there is a time in history where, and it was a Republican candidate, got taken off of the ballot in a lot of states.
Wasn't it Lincoln?
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And what happened after that election?
Yeah, exactly. They took him off the ballot in the states that had slaves still. And it's
the southern states took him off the ballot. Yep.
Yeah, and look at what happened. That's what I mean. This is a crazy time, and I know for the most of my life we keep saying, "Oh, this is the most important election." Well, the most important election is the one we're in right now, and I mean that any time. The next one will be the most important too, but it does seem like things have changed pretty drastically. I mean, I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. It may have been happening in the 60s with Vietnam and civil rights and that, but I may have been too young to realize it. But in my adult lifetime, we've never seen anything in politics like we're looking at right now.
No, and I mean, I know, there were issues, during the 60s, but I don't think it was to this extreme. Well, there were extremists around,
right?
But it was small pockets. I mean, I believe it's the internet, social media.
Agree.
You know, people say things on the internet they would never say in person.
Yeah.
Somebody else.
Yeah. No, I agree.
That's changed a lot of it.
You know, I've been talking about this a lot. Maybe it's just because it's, you know, I do spend a lot of time on social media, both our sites and mostly Twitter these days. We need to reach out to new people, and that's what Twitter's kind of serving for us right now. I am shocked at how I keep hearing this, and it's only a couple people, but I keep seeing it over and over, how they really believe that the Motor Carrier Act of 1980 was a bad thing.
Well, but that's because they don't know what it was like. They just hear the stories of how freight rates were higher. But that's the only detail they know.
You know what? I went back and looked, and in reality, drivers' pay was not significantly higher than it is today. Not even close. Not even when you account for inflation and all those other things. All those stories about, truck drivers used to make 3 times more. No, they didn't. Wasn't even close to that. But those are the stories you hear all the time. But I just wonder if they understand what happened. And I ask them outright, and I can't get anybody to respond. I'll say, you are willing to let the government control the rates in trucking. And they won't answer that. I don't think they understand that that's what was happening back then. I don't think they understand that that's what changed.
Well, and the ability to get authority, that's
how
the bigger one.
That's how the government controlled the rates. They didn't set the rates. The government didn't say, you have to charge this much from Cleveland to Dallas. What they did was they stopped giving authority for the most part. So what they controlled was the supply side of the equation. Supply and demand always dictates price, always. And by controlling the supply, by saying, no, we're not going to give any new authority. By doing that, the government, in essence, controlled the rates in trucking. And I can't believe there are people that would actually want to go back to that.
You know,
Now,
we focus on trucking because we know it.
Hold on. Let me talk about how ironic this is. Here's the other thing they're pushing for. They don't want you to be allowed to lease to a carrier. Now, put those two things together, and what does that mean? If I can't get my authority because the government won't issue it, because that's how they controlled the rates, and it's illegal for me to lease to a carrier, it is now impossible to become an owner-operator.
Yep.
There's no way to do it.
Your company drivers.
Yeah, and I don't think they understand that at all, but that's what would happen.
You know, but the whole comment about it used to be better pay, and they might be talking a truck driver's kind of, rank and pay in society, I think was a higher paying job at one point. Inflation, we've kind of come out the same, but you look at it, I mean, butchers used to be, that was a very high honor.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It paid good because you had to know what you were doing.
It was a career.
Everybody got swinging beef, and you actually made a cut of meat.
Right. It was a career.
Pharmacist. I mean, yes, a true pharmacist is still a very high-paying job, but the majority of the clerks, they're not making that great of money anymore.
No, and they don't do anything anymore. Pharmacists used to actually create the drug. They're actually making a comeback in more of the natural health world. They're called compound pharmacies, where they would actually custom formulate a drug. That to me, I don't understand the purpose of a pharmacist. They stand there and count pills.
Well, now that it's all barcoded, it's pretty hard to make a mistake. You got to scan the bottle you're taking it out of.
And don't tell me we put the pharmacist through all this training to make sure that they catch, two drugs that shouldn't be prescribed together or that kind of bullshit. They're not doing that. Nobody knows what drugs are a problem together, and we have people taking 6 and 7 and 8 prescriptions. So you can't tell me these pharmacists are monitoring that, or if they are, it's not doing any good. So I don't even understand the purpose of that job anymore.
No.
You might as well just move that part into the doctor's office or the clinic. It'd be much easier if the doctor's going to prescribe the drug. They might as well just give it to me too.
Well, yeah, it's getting to that point with, prepackaged stuff. Why don't they just have them at the doctor's office and just hand you the bottle?
Right, that's all it is. No pharmacist is compounding and making a drug. That's what pharmacies used to do. And now it's just a matter of they're counting pills. Move that stuff into the doctor's office.
So I have a request from the audience for this year.
All right.
I like to talk about numbers. I'd love to help other people with their numbers. So I would really like to hear more people call in and ask.
I would
questions
too.
About their numbers and get involved in your numbers, even if you're hiring it all out for somebody else to do all the data entry, which is a mistake in my opinion.
Let me make a comment there because you bring up a good point. If you are farming out all of your accounting, you're having somebody do your month-to-month accounting and your tax return and all that, and you're not all that involved in your own numbers, then it's even more important that you pick up that P&L or whatever report you get and call in. Let's talk about it so you spend time in there and understand it. That's really a good point. Those people need it more than anybody. They should be calling in and talking about it. The people who do their own numbers already know them. They're doing them. They know the numbers inside and out. I love when they call and share and we talk about ways to improve them. And I've always thought that. We are going to do more profit gauges training, which is kind of the same thing. We'll be doing Zoom calls so we can go over how the reporting works. And I like that. I wish we could get a lot more talk of that on the show.
Yeah. Well, and the people that already have a P&L that have it hired out, those are the easy people to help.
Right.
Just send us your information and we can tell you, because when you don't have numbers, all we can do is we need to get the numbers.
We need to get numbers, right?
Make a decision.
Right. That's always the first step.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more calls, and I'll volunteer to help.
Good stuff.
Who's ever willing to call in and work on stuff.
One of the things I'm looking forward to when we get through this technology, and like I said, I have a meeting today. We might be starting some testing on our own phone system today. I am looking forward to being able to do more shows without me. I'm looking at my schedule this year. We're bringing back Rates and Lanes with Brent. We're bringing back Broker Connect with the TIA. We're probably putting together some sort of a podcast with NASTIC. I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet. I've got a coaching call every week, and I'm getting ready to launch a virtual training program every week. My schedule's slammed full. I mean, everything I want to do right now in my week isn't going to happen. I'm going to have to pick and choose. I'm looking forward to part of what we've been working on the technology would be to make it easy for somebody like you to do a show with nothing but your phone when you're on the road and you've got time. And the good news about our network, it's not like Sirius where you kind of had to have a time slot filled. I mean, there were set shows. That's the show that's going to be on every week. Well, we've already broken all the rules of radio anyway. We don't do commercials. We do all kinds of goofy stuff. I don't know why we couldn't have shows that it's just a show when somebody has time to do one. It doesn't have to be scheduled every week or every month or whenever. If you wanted to do a show on numbers, I want it to be where you could do that easily.
Yep.
90 seconds.
Yeah, and on the investing side, there's another one. I'd love more questions.
Yeah.
I've just last week here went through and kind of redid some of my stuff and getting rid of some older mutual funds I was in with higher fees that, they've always done real well.
All right.
I've always held off on.
I hate to do this, but I scheduled my show to end at 10 today, and I wasn't watching the clock. And it's
60 seconds.
I got 1 minute to close out. So I'm going to cut you loose.
Okay.
Love the idea. We had 2 more calls on hold. Sorry I didn't get to you guys. I had to cut this off at 10 today because, like I said, we do have a meeting shortly here to start going over and maybe even testing our technology, and I've got to get ready for that. And I've got a couple other things going on. So great show today. Thanks for all the calls. We will see you back here tomorrow for the Power Hour. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.